My father stopped speaking to me when I was 19 years old because I quit the career he chose for me. In this video, I'll tell you why every plan I followed fell apart, what I discovered after losing everything in the Lahaina wildfire, and what it means for you if you're a mom who felt like you've lost yourself somewhere along the way. My father left the Philippines when I was 7. He came to America to work, and I stayed behind with my great-grandmother. She was raising 13 kids in the same house, feeding everyone from what she could grow and sell from her land. That's where I learned what it means to survive. When I was 15, I came to America with my little brother with only $20. And the first thing my father told me was, become a nurse. So I did. I finished a degree. I worked at a hospital in Chicago. I quit because when I was working, a boy's bone came out from skateboarding accident and I start shaking. And he told me it's gonna be okay. I knew then I wanted to stop nursing. My father then stopped talking to me. So I traveled. I backpacked alone through Asia and Europe with almost nothing. And when I came home, he told me he would speak to me again if I studied accounting. So I did that too. Got the degree from Loyola, worked 12 years as a senior accountant. And I also got my real estate license because my boss during accounting told me it would be great for my credentials to have a real estate license. And I listened to that too. 3 degrees, 3 plans, every single one built to make someone else proud. And here's the part nobody warns you about. They all work. I got the career, I got the title, I got the paycheck. On paper, I had it figured out. But there's a research out of University of Rochester, psychologist named Ryan in DC, who spent decades studying why people quit things that should be working. And what they found is that when a goal is imposed on you by someone else, it doesn't matter how successful you are at it. You won't sustain it because it violates something fundamental. Your need to feel like the path is yours. They call it self-determination. I call it the truth I ignored for 20 years. And I'm not the only one. I know a mom here in Maui, former runway model. She's been studying nutrition since she was a teenager. Taught me how to eat, what to avoid, things I'd never heard from a doctor. I told her she should teach it. She looked at me and said, I can't do that. I don't have any background in nutrition. She wanted credential, 20 years of knowledge, and she won't start because nobody gave her a piece of paper that says she's allowed. That's the trap. It's not just following someone else's plan. It's believing you need someone else's permission before your own life can begin. And when I became a mom of twins and I stepped away from accounting to raise them, I looked at everything I'd built and I couldn't point a single thing that was mine. Not the degree, not the career, not the plan, none of it. I was living in one of the most expensive places in America. I had no income of my own and I had no idea what to do next. And the smallest thing in the world changed my life. When my twins were just babies, I was breastfeeding them and they broke my favorite earrings. I went to the store to replace it and I bought diapers instead. I couldn't justify the cost. I had no background in jewelry making, no training, no supplies. I was living off savings, renting out room just to make rent. But I had the ocean. So I started walking the beach, collecting seashells with my daughters, and teaching myself to make jewelry while my girls napped. The first piece of jewelry I made, my own mother wouldn't even wear them. I improved every single week. And then over 8 years, I taught myself everything. Designing, sourcing, pricing, and eventually I was working with Tahitian pearls and South Sea pearls. sourcing them internationally. The business hit 6 figures. Completely self-taught, no investors, no business plan. But here's the part I've never really said out loud. I never once sold my jewelry in person. Not a craft fair, not a market, not a pop-up. Everything was online. I'm hiding in my own world, selling my jewelry at Etsy and Facebook Marketplace, making sure nobody really sees me, because deep inside, I'm still worried what people might say, because I was an established accountant and I was terrified of what my family and friends would say if they saw me standing behind a table selling seashell jewelry. There's a study out of Harvard Business School researchers named Jahimovich who found that passion doesn't come before the work. It comes from the work. You don't find your thing and then start. You start and that thing finds you. I had found my thing. I just did not have the courage to say it out loud. I just didn't have the courage to let anybody see it. And then in August 2023, the Lahaina fire took everything. My daughters and I evacuated with nothing. No inventory, no tools, no home. I lost my house, and so did my other family houses. We moved from one hotel to the next. We were passed down from one housing to the next by FEMA. And then we finally found a house that we could rent out for 1 year. And the owner of the house happened to live across us. And then I mentioned that I was an accountant, but in a side business, I make jewelries. And here's the thing. The owner of the house's wife happened to be a jeweler, a very serious jeweler who has serious tools and materials to work with. She mentioned to me that she had Parkinson and could no longer work and had offered her materials to me. And I said, oh, well, I was going to go back to accounting. And she just mentioned, why don't you look at it and tell me if you want it or not? The next day, I saw the materials. Tahitian pearls, South Sea pearls, 14K gold filled, sterling silver, equipments, thousands of dollars. And I said, are you sure you're going to give this all away? And she said, of course. I no longer need them, and you could have all of them. This was enough to build my business all over again. Now I actually just started making jewelry to donate them to volunteers during the Lahaina fire. There were a lot of women volunteering during the Lahaina fire, and I wanted to give back by giving them jewelries. Then 5 jewelries became 20 jewelries, 20 jewelries became 30 jewelries. I just couldn't stop making jewelries. It helped my mind be at peace with what happened to our town and to my home. I lost everything. Not a single thing survived during the fire. Memories from childhood, pictures that were not digitalized. Deep inside, I was very sad, and jewelry making helped me be at peace of what had happened to us. Then one day, a friend mentioned that there is a Lahaina craft fair in town and that I should apply to put my tent up and my jewelry out in public. And I was very embarrassed to do that at the very beginning, but for mental sake, I then went on to try the Lahaina Gateway Craft Fair. At the beginning, it was awful. My very first day, I barely made rent. And I used dish and plates to display my things. For me, it was an awful experience and I was really embarrassed. And my next door vendor looked at my stuff with pity, and something triggered. That pity look made me want to do better. And I did. Less than a year later, I became one of the most aesthetically pleasing look pop-up craft fair in Lahaina. Now I have 2 booths and I sell one of the biggest pearls and the best seashell finds you could find here at Lahaina, Maui. The fire took my house. It took my inventory. It took 8 years of work, but it couldn't take the thing that actually mattered. because the business was never the seed. I was the seed, the skill, the eye, the willingness to start with whatever was in front of me. That lived in my hands, not in a booth. And the fire did one more thing I didn't expect. It burned away the fear of being seen or being judged, of being the accountant that makes jewelry. That fear that kept my seed buried for 8 years. The fire cleared it. My neighbor didn't give me a new seed. She gave me soil. And the seed was already there. The same one that picked up a broken earrings 10 years earlier and said, I'll fix it myself. Your seed is already in front of you. You don't need a new plan. You don't need a credential. You don't need permission. You need to look down at what's already in your hands and plant it. But knowing you have a seed and actually planting it, those are two different things. Because there's something that keeps most moms from ever starting. And I watched it almost cost my mom her entire life. My mom just turned 60, and for her 60th birthday, I took her to Europe. I planned this trip with her with my brothers for a year, and we planned a 12-day trip. Now, when the day came, my two brothers couldn't come. My two brothers couldn't make it due to their obligations. And my mother as well couldn't do 12 days. She could only do 8 days because she said she does not have enough PTO and she will have to pretend to be sick to make it to a 10-day trip. I asked her, why don't you just tell your work you're turning 60 and you're going on a trip? Oh, honey, think they care that it's my 60th birthday? They don't care. They'll let me go and hire younger nurses who are willing to get paid half of the salary she's already been getting paid. 30 years of service and she's replaceable by tomorrow. Then my two brothers, both military veterans, told me they couldn't come. They just started families and they couldn't step away from work. So now it's just me and my mom. And even to make that happen, I had to ask my husband to watch the kids for 12 days. So let me be honest. I can't just take off either. I'm a mom. I have 3 girls to take care of. But because I built something off my own, I had enough freedom to make it work. I didn't have to ask a boss. I didn't have to fake being sick. I didn't have to cancel a year of planning because somebody else owned my life. My mom couldn't make it. My brother couldn't work with it. My husband had to ask for permission. And I was the only one at the table with enough room to say yes. That's when it hits me. Not as an idea, but in my body. I looked at my mother's life and I saw the cost of spending 30 years tending someone else's garden. She gave her health, her time, her best years. And at 60, she has to lie about being sick to take a trip with her own daughter. And then I looked at mine. I drop my girls at school. I go to the ocean. I come home and I make jewelry from pearls I source myself and shells I dove myself. I make my own income at home, all because I listened to that inner voice and tend to it like a garden. I don't ask anyone for permission. And when my daughter's school calls in the middle of the day, I answer. I don't check with my manager. I just go. I didn't build this because I had a plan. I built it because I picked up a broken earrings and said, I'll figure it out. And then I kept doing that over and over with whatever was in front of me. The plans that my father gave me did not survive. The inventory the fire took, gone. But the seed, the part of me that looks at what's in her hands and starts, that's still there. That's what builds everything. Twice. If you're a mom, if you're someone who felt like you've lost everything and yourself, I need you to hear me. You haven't. Your seed is still there. It might be buried under someone else's plan or someone else's expectation or your own fear of being seen, but it's still there. And you don't need a degree or credential or permission to plan it. You just need to start with what's in front of you. This video wasn't about jewelry. It wasn't about the fire. It was about you. If you've been waiting for the right time, the right credential, or someone to tell you you're ready, you've been watering someone else's garden, and your seed has been sitting in your hands this whole time. You're not starting from zero. You never were. You're starting from you, and that's enough. This channel is specifically created for moms who think that they've lost themselves somewhere along the line. If that's you, subscribe, because everything that I make here comes from a woman who started with a broken earring, lost it all, and built it all over again with her bare hands. Now, you believe you have a seed. How do you actually find it? And once you do, how do you plant the first ugly version without freezing up? That's exactly what I'm breaking down in this video right here.